Right now, the day's biggest news stories from a Vegas perspective. This is the Vegas Take with Sharp and Shapiro.
All right, what's up, Vegas? Good morning. It is the Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro. So glad you could join us on a Tuesday. I cannot believe we are less than, well, definitely less than 24 hours away. About 15, 14 hours away. I'm not very good at math from 2020, as you can tell. Not very good with addition and subtraction. But, yeah, we're almost there, folks. And got a great show lined up for you today. A lot of great topics to talk about. Some difficult topics to talk about as well. This is going to be a fun interview coming up later on in the show. He is known as the Violator, part of the Black Hole, one of the most famous Raiders and NFL fans of all time. He's going to tell us why he does not plan on continuing supporting the Raiders as they move to Las Vegas. He's going to be joining us in hour number 3. Also, in the world of sports handicapping and sports betting, it's usually a man's occupation, right? Well, not in this case. Woman by the name of Minty Betts works for Wager Talk, professional sports handicapper. She's going to be joining us in hour number 3. Women are now, I'm not going to say taking over, but many women are starting to get into this industry. I think it's great. So we'll talk to her coming up in hour number 3. Hour number 2, it's the Minister, Stretch Sanders. It is Tuesday, and boy, do I have a lot to get to with him. He made some very controversial statements last week saying that if you are an African-American, it is impossible for you to be racist. We're going to challenge him a little bit more on those topics and much, much more coming up in hour number 2. But, I want to start off with something that I think needs to be addressed and talked about. And we're going to get to the Donald Trump stuff, the New York Times article, the discussion or the phone call he had with Vladimir Putin, which was at the very least concerning. We'll get to that here in just a little bit. But boy, have there been a lot of hate crimes and hate attacks, particularly towards the Jewish community. Now, I know we had a guy walk into a church wanting to kill innocent people. But, of course, as you know, of this Hanukkah stabbing where the suspect, before this stabbing, searched stuff on his computer, like why did Adolf Hitler hate the Jews? This was more than a month before he was charged with basically trying to execute Jewish people with a machete. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And let me just explain this. This is just in New York alone in the last week. Attacks against Jewish people, anti-Semitism. In my lifetime, I can't recall this happening in this country, certainly not to this magnitude. And this is just in New York alone, right? December 23rd, an elderly man was assaulted by a man using anti-Semitic slurs. A man and children were assaulted in a residential building because they were Jews. On December 24th, a drink was thrown at a man after yelling anti-Semitic slurs, and another man later punched another guy because he was Jewish. On December 25th, a man wearing a traditional religious clothing was punched in the face. This, by the way, again, this is all in New York. December 26th, a woman was struck with a bag and assaulted because of her being Jewish. On December 27th, 3 women were slapped in the face because they're Jews. There was a shooting threat on December 27th in New York at the Chabad Lubavitch World Headquarters. On December 28th, multiple stabbings, of course, in this rabbi's home that we've been talking about. What is going on? And now we have this, this Hebrew Israelites. Black Hebrew Israelites, a movement that officials say the suspect in this stabbing. Also in New Jersey, the shooting expressed interest in this Black Hebrew Israelite situation.
This is the same group where that Covington situation with Sandman, he was confronting a member of the Black Hebrew Israelites.
Yes, correct. So this has been going on for quite some time. I want to know how this group started, where it's going. This is a dangerous group, just like we talk about white supremacists. Well, now we have Hebrew Israelite supremacists, I guess, anti-Semitic supremacists, so to speak. Not to say that a white supremacist is not anti-Jew as well, because they are. But when I look at this,
and from what I understand, the premise of their we'll call it so-called supremacy is that they feel that they are the quote-unquote chosen ones.
Yeah, and it's really disgusting because this is not just a Hebrew Israelite movement. I mean, there's anti-Semitism all over this country right now. I don't understand why. Did you hear about this story about these West Virginia cadets in this photo? They were seen giving a Nazi salute. All of them giving a Nazi salute. 3 staff members at the training academy will be fired. Everybody in that photo is going to be fired. West Virginia Governor Jim Justice announced The image was discovered earlier this month, shows members of this West Virginia Division of Corrections and Rehabilitation basic training class, 18 of them with one arm raised. The text above reads, "Hail Bird," in a reference to a training instructor for the class. I mean, you want to talk about utterly disgusting behavior. And now we're seeing it publicly. I mean, I always knew there were going to be idiots out there that are going to be anti-Semitic, just like there's ignorant people out there that are racist. But it seems like we're seeing these views more publicly now than ever before. I don't know the reason why for that. I don't know why. But let's talk a little bit more about this stabbing that took place inside a rabbi's home. I mean, it's unbelievable. This is a witness who described escaping this December 28th stabbing attack inside this rabbi's home in Muncie, New York, that left 5 people wounded.
There was a in between, so most people were there. Just a big, huge guy came in with a sword, an axe. I don't know what it was. Yeah, I don't know exactly what it was, and I didn't see it clearly. I was sitting by the end, by the corner, by the window over there, and I just saw him start to hit whoever he could.
What did you do?
I started immediately to run out the back door. I ran into the kitchen, ran out the porch, and there was a lot of women and children. They all ran out, and I came in. When I was outside, I thought probably he will do the same. Because I saw his sword, I was sure he's going to kill everyone on this.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what he certainly tried to do. Imagine if you're sitting in your home, and somebody enters your home with a machete, and it's not someone that wants to rob you. It's not someone that wants to take your money or your belongings. That would be bad enough. But it's somebody that wants to kill you with a machete, all because of your religion. Make no mistake about it. That's what happened here. So New York Governor Andrew Cuomo spoke outside of the home of this Hasidic rabbi and calling this certainly an act of terrorism. Here he is.
At the end of the day, it's not just about words, it's about action. And we have seen enough in New York. This is violence. Spurred by hate. It is mass violence, and I consider this an act of domestic terrorism. Let's call it what it is. These people are domestic terrorists, and the law should reflect that, and they should be punished as if it was an act of terrorism.
Amen. I couldn't agree with him more. Now, here's where I have a problem. This man who walked in with a machete, his attorney's name is Michael Sussman. Amazing, because I would imagine the last name Sussman, his attorney, sounds to me like his attorney's Jewish, which makes his comments even worse here. So he's talking at a news conference yesterday about some of the anti-Semitic literature and the writings of this nut job. Have a listen to this.
We were able this morning to go to the home, Reverend Page and I, and review scores of papers which frankly show the ramblings of a disturbed individual, but there is no suggestion in any of those ramblings and pages of writing of an anti-Semitic motive, of any anti-Semitism.
Okay, this guy is a complete idiot. This is where I have a huge problem with attorneys. I know it's his job to defend his client. How can you say this isn't anti-Semitic? They looked in some of these writings. The FBI is saying he's horrible anti-Semitic remarks. He looked up, why did Adolf Hitler hate the Jews? How can you tell me this is not an anti-Semitic situation? This attorney is a buffoon.
Especially if he was trying to justify why he should commit these crimes by looking up something like, why did Adolf Hitler hit the Jews?
Exactly.
And that really actually, it makes attorneys look very, very bad.
It makes this guy look like a complete moron.
Not just him, but attorneys in general. The fact that he is most likely Jewish and he is going out of his way to try to spin this, despite the fact that
it gets worse, though.
That he's totally he knows 100% that it is anti-Semitism.
It gets worse, though. Listen to this. This is the attorney going on saying that he does not believe that his client, I guess you could call it a client, he does not believe that it was specifically targeting Jewish people. Have a listen to this.
I spent about 35 minutes speaking with Grafton Thomas this morning, and while obviously I can't disclose the detail of that conversation, I can tell you that I heard nothing in that conversation that confirmed in any way, shape, or manner that he's a domestic terrorist, that he intentionally targeted this in that sense.
Okay, this guy should be ashamed of himself. I understand that this attorney is not the one that committed the crime with the machete, but when you are an attorney, you don't have to lie to defend your client. This attorney knows damn well that his client absolutely 100% singled out Jewish people. That is anti-Semitic. That is the definition of a hate crime, period.
Not only that, did the rabbi live in a predominantly Jewish neighborhood? I'm sure he did.
Yes.
So he walks into a predominantly Jewish neighborhood. That proves right there that he was targeting Jewish people.
This guy went out of his way, drove a while, went into this rabbi's home, specifically targeting Jewish people. How more specific? This is the definition of a hate crime. If this isn't a hate crime, I don't know what is, and this attorney should be ashamed of himself. It is shameful. We need to call out this type of garbage. If somebody, now listen, if you go in there with a machete and you murder somebody, it's murder. But if you go in there and murder somebody with the action or the way of thinking that you're doing it just for what somebody looks like, or for somebody's sexuality, or just because of somebody's religion, that is what a hate crime is. And for this attorney to stand up there yesterday and speak in front of the media and say there's no evidence to suggest, in his opinion, that he targeted Jewish people, that he's just mentally ill. Well, obviously he's mentally ill. For God's sakes, anybody that wants to kill somebody innocent because of their religion is mentally ill. The number to call is 702-257-5396. Again, that number, if you want to be a part of the conversation, I'll open up the phone line. 702-257-5396. I don't care how Looney Tunes this guy is. I don't care how much of a nut job he is. This is a hate crime. It's no different than if you went into a gay bar and targeted people that are homosexuals. It's no different than if you go into a church and you hate Christians and you go in there, you want to kill a bunch of good Christians. It's the same thing. He went into the rabbi's home. He had literature. What more do you want? What more proof do you want that this is a hate crime? It drives me freaking nuts. Attorneys like Michael Sussman are not helping this situation any. In fact, they're making it worse because it's important for all of us to call out what this is. Is he a madman? Yes. Is he a nut job? Yes. Is he a murderer? Yes. This is anti-Semitism at its worst, and it's happening right here in our backyard. It's happening here in this country. And it comes on the realm. It's not just, anti-Semitism. How about this nut job, Keith Kinman, who walks into a church, kills a man by the name of Tony Wallace, and also injures a security guard. Yes, I am happy that there are people that had guns in that church that executed this son of a bitch. Yes, I'm happy. Don't you tell me that white supremacy doesn't exist here. Don't you tell me that there aren't people acting on their anti-Semitic ways. It's happening. I just read you a number of things that are happening on a daily basis just in New York alone when it comes to anti-Semitism and hate crimes. And I'm sorry, Mr. President, but getting up there in a speech and just saying a couple sentences about how it will not be tolerated is not enough. It's not enough. I'm not blaming the president for any of this, but we need to do something about this. As I say, we need to do something about the gun violence in this country. We need to do something about the rise of hate crimes. In 2018, hate crime violence hit a 16-year high. It's dipped a little bit, but the violence is still up there. This is a problem. It's not going away. It needs to be addressed by the president more than just a few sentences at a campaign rally. Both Republicans and Democrats need to do something about this now. Action needs to be taken. Throw the book at these bastards. Put them in jail for the rest of their lives, as far as I'm concerned. 702-257-5396 is the number to call. Why don't we start with Dwayne? Dwayne, you are first up on the Vegas Take. What's going on?
Hey, what's up, Dwayne?
I think we lost Dwayne. 702-257-5396. That sounded a little bit like the Violator, who we're going to get in hour number 3. Let's go to Brady. Brady, thanks for calling into the Vegas Take. What's going on?
Hey, Brady.
Yeah, good morning, guys. Hey, I wanted to bring up that guy that chopped in people up, the Jewish people in New York. There's another example of what happens when Cuomo takes the guns away from the average citizen. Now you're stuck in a problem where somebody can walk in your house with a knife and chop your family up, and you can't even shoot them. So how good is that, Brian?
Okay.
What are you going to do when somebody comes in?
So you're
to the
telling
radio
me-
station with the machete?
Okay, well,
What are you gonna do?
let me respond. First of all, you're telling me that you cannot defend yourself in your home with a weapon in the state of New York? Is that what you're telling me?
You can't have handguns in New York.
That's not what I asked you. Can you not defend yourself in New York with any type of weapon if you've never committed a felony and you're legally allowed to purchase a gun?
I don't think guns are allowed in New York City, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, well, guess what? This didn't happen in New York City. So why don't you get your facts right first before you call in? This didn't happen in New York City, number one. Number two, we're not talking about gun control because this is not a gun control issue. We're talking about anti-Semitism. We're talking about hate crimes that don't just occur in New York City. They occur throughout the country. I just happen to name some of the incidents that took place in New York just in the span of a week. I'm talking about specifically hate crimes and why crime is on the rise, why hate crimes and violent.
So I'm talking about hate crimes, and after the fact, why aren't these Jewish people arming themselves? Are they stupid? Are they wimpy? Or what's their problem?
So let me get this right. You called into the show. You've called Jewish people wimpy, but yet you haven't addressed the people that are actually committing the hate crimes. Do I have your position correct,
And you
Brady?
also said, what are we going to do when someone comes into the studio with a machete, if I'm not mistaken?
What are you going to do? Yeah, there's a classic example.
Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do right now, Brady. I'm going to hang up on a racist, prejudiced, anti-Semitic idiot like you. That's what I'm going to do. 702-257-5396 is the number to call. Again, that number 257-5396. Let's go to Richard. Richard, thank you for calling in. What's on your mind?
What's up, Richard?
Yeah, I think a lot of the major problems we have with anti-Semitism in our country are from Islamo-supremacists, from very wealthy, powerful Islamo-supremacists, such as those in Saudi Arabia or Qatar, and just the oil-producing nations.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to culturally transform our nation, as and all nations, frankly.
Yeah.
And many of them are virulent anti-Semites.
Oh, no question. I mean, I agree with you. There's absolutely no question about that. But Richard, I've always known that, there are anti-Semitic people in this country, but it just appears to me that people are now acting out on those beliefs more than ever before. I mean, at least it appears that way to me. Am I wrong in thinking that?
Certainly so. Certainly so. The solution is we have to stop being so politically correct with those who are supremacists.
Right.
There's white supremacists are problematic, but all supremacists are problematic.
No, I agree.
And they need to all be treated equally.
Richard, I could not agree with
That's
you more.
100% true.
Yeah, I appreciate the call, Richard. Thank you very much.
And one of the things is now that we've gone over this 1,000 times, but with social media and with every single thing that happens, every single negative thing that happens in the United States or even internationally, I mean, it's right in your face 24/7, and that was not the case 20, 30, 15, 10 years ago. And so it's possible that these crimes have been happening at just as high of rates for the last 20 or 30 years, and I'll have to look at the actual data on that. But right now, because of the way that the media is, the mass media is projected with the phones,
I can tell you right now, I gave out a stat. Hate crime violence hit a 16-year high last year. So things are not moving in the right direction. Let's put it that way. 257-5396. Let's go to Len. Len, you're next on the Vegas Take. What's going on?
Hey,
What's
how
up,
you
Len?
doing?
Good.
Go ahead, Len.
Yes, Michael Sussman is a douche. He's been doing this for 20 and 25 years, and he only takes cases against the Jewish community.
Len, let me just give people, just so people are just tuning in, Len is talking about the attorney who is representing the man with the machete who walked into this rabbi's home. Len, I agree with you, and I think that attorneys that make poor excuses, I don't understand this. How can you say that this guy who walks into a rabbi's home with a machete, the FBI is saying that he had all these anti-Semitic writings. How can you say he wasn't targeting Jewish people? I cannot believe he said that, Len.
Okay, I lived in Rockland County where Muncie is, and it's a very large Jewish community, and Michael Sussman has taken all the cases against the Jewish community.
Isn't he Jewish himself?
Cases.
He's Jewish himself, isn't he?
He is, but how do you think they got him in 20 minutes after this event?
No, that's true. You're right. The question, Len, is why? I mean, this attorney needs to be called out. I completely agree with you. In my opinion, he is disgusting, utterly disgusting. Len, I appreciate.
This attorney is making a lot of money representing people against the Jews, and he's happy about it.
You're right, Len. It certainly appears that way. It seems like he's doing it for the publicity, and I think you're right. Len, I appreciate the phone call. Let's try to squeeze in.
Good call, Len. Happy New Year.
Let's try to squeeze in one more quick phone call. Let's go to Carl. Carl, thanks for calling in. What's on your mind?
What's up, Carl?
Yeah. Hi, guys.
What's up?
Listen, people, here's a point that people don't realize. Most of these anti-Semites are actually very hypocritical. They claim to be very religious Christians and so forth.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
But to think of this point, Jesus Christ was born a Jew. He was Jewish family. He was a rabbi. He was considered the son of God, if you read the Bible.
Right.
And that means God made a mistake by picking him as a... so what they're doing is they're completely going against their own religion.
No, you're right,
by
Carl.
being anti-Semitic.
Carl, you make a very good point there. You're right. And I think I've said this on this show before, and I'll say it again. It just seems to me, not all, but a lot of people that are the most religious, ultra-religious people are usually the people that are committing the most sins in society. They're the ones who want to tell you, don't do that, that's a sin. Don't do that, that's a sin. And then we have all these priests that are molesting boys, and you have all these, religious people, some of which are on the right, but I don't want to make this political, but ultra-religious people that are cheating on their wives and committing all these crimes. It just disgusts me, man. This stuff needs to stop. It continues to time. Now, I can tell you something. When Stretch Sanders comes in the 10 a.m. hour, I want to ask him, what does he feel about these Hebrew Israelites? You just told me that African Americans, they can't be racist. Can they be anti-Semitic? Because it certainly appears that this guy was. We'll ask Stretch Sanders coming up in hour number 2. But coming up next, a very interesting New York Times article that came out. Donald Trump having a very interesting conversation with Vladimir Putin. Why didn't the White House release it before the Kremlin did? We'll talk about that coming up next. You're listening to The Vegas Tape.